right. Well, it is just a few seconds shy of 6 o'clock. So I think we will go ahead and get this show on the road tonight. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. You guys are in for a real treat tonight. I have read through Lobat's bio. I knew a little bit about her before, but when she sent me her bio, I was just blown away by all that you have done and all that you are doing. And I can't wait for everyone to hear your story. So everyone in the audience will just sit back and listen. Lobat is going to tell us her story and give us all of her information. And I'm going to look up your website, Lobat, because I can't remember it off the top of my head to pin it at the top here. So I'm going to let you take it away and tell us all about yourself and what your work, the projects you've been working on, and a little bit about your history and what's coming up for you. And then we'll take some questions. Be sure to unmic yourself. Bottom right corner. All right, hang on just a minute. Lobat's having some trouble here.
I was going to say, we can manually do it.
No, she's not able to hear anything.
That's going to be a problem. Well, while Deb is reaching out to Lobat to see if she can handle this for everybody in the room, I think you guys are going to be so excited. We moved Gilligan, the Canada Lynx, into Nikita Lyon's old enclosure. And she had an Explorer camera there, which is manned, which means somebody can keep that on him whenever he's out in that open air area. And it has a microphone that is making some weird noises right now, but we'll hope to get that through troubleshooting. And the coolest thing is going to be this spring when he is making his amazing calls that you guys will be able to hear that on the camera, on the microphone for the Explorer camera. So I can't wait for you guys to see him. It's supposed to be really rainy and windy the next 2 days, so everybody's shut out of their open air areas. That's why he's not in there today. But he did make the move this morning, so I'm really excited for you guys to be able to see and hear him.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, I think it'll be really exciting whenever everyone can see him out in the open air, and he's just such a unique looking cat. All right, I think Lobat has her volume fixed and can hear us. Lobat, are you ready?
Yes, absolutely. I just want to make sure that it was working, and you all can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
If you just want to tell us, I don't know how much you heard of what I just said, but if you want to tell us your story as far as what you've done in your life and what your plans are and what you have in the works, I know everyone would love to hear that. So I'm just going to let you take it away and tell your story.
All right. Thank you so much. No, I didn't hear the earlier part. I apologize for that. I just heard the tail end of what you were talking about with Carol. But yeah, so I'll dive in. My name is Lobat Asadi, and that means Enchantress of the Lions. So it's interesting because sometimes you think, well, did I become my name, or did my name make me who I am, or how much of this is hereditary and things like that. But and I'll tell you why that's interesting. So my father was a big cat specialist. And what that means is by the International Union of Conservation for Nature, it's the world's largest nonprofit organization dedicated to animal conservation, biodiversity. Short is IUCN. They have special interest groups and specialists, and he was one of the globally known cat specialists, big cat specialists. So what that meant for me was that I was chasing my father around the world growing up, and I really couldn't ever get enough time with him. But the interesting thing is, once I was old enough to be able to travel and see him, I got a little bit of an idea of what he's up to, partially from him, partially from his colleagues. And the reason being is that some of his work was dangerous. One of the things he did was set up poachers to get arrested by going undercover and acting like he was buying animal parts, skins, bones, and all those things that you have heard about and probably seen in some movies. This was mostly in India. So I had the pleasure of traveling to India and seeing a little bit of what he did. He would sort of distance things from me, but I would hear the stories. They'd come up in the papers. People would stop by all the time. So that was kind of like how I grew up. And then what happened is he eventually went back to Iran, where he was from, where I was born as well. And he started Asiatic cheetah conservation. And that had not been truly actualized before with international collaborations with the United Nations and IUCN. So he went back, he realized there's only about 100 or so left. This was in 95. And sadly, the numbers declined. My father passed away in 2008. And you know, when you lose somebody that's so meaningful in your life, you just go through all the different, ways of dealing, not dealing, denying, and then diving into it, in my case, more recently. So I had a suitcase full of his things that I really abruptly packed when I left Iran after the funeral. Just, I'm a bicultural person, but basically I'm American. I spent most of my life in the United States, and I don't understand most of Persian culture. When I'm there, I'm definitely the foreigner. I don't go there any longer, but when my father was there, I was visiting. So I hurriedly packed up as much as I could. I put it in a suitcase, and, it was just really dramatic. And I only partially understood what was going on. The customs and rituals are very different. So I couldn't open the suitcase for the longest time, even though I packed it. When you lose a loved one, as I say, you go through different phases. And his handwritten notes, his books, his clothing, it was all so powerful. It smelled like him. It reminded me of him. I knew I had to have these things with me, but I couldn't dive in until about 2020. A lot of things happened in 2020, as we all know. And I couldn't really deny that I had literally this big brown suitcase, this big cat in the room with me, just facing me. And I dived in and contacted his colleagues, and it's just been a Pandora's box ever since. So I think I'll stop right about there, but that's how I came to revitalize his work and formed a nonprofit organization, and the main project is the Asiatic Cheetah Conservation Project, which was inspired by the name of that my father started of his project back in 1995. Of course, that was in Iran, and this is registered in the United States. So it's my way of honoring his work, writing about it through publications. I do educational talks for all ages. I do my best to write curriculum that incorporates wildlife conservation for the Asiatic cheetah, but also for other opportunities that I have, like the Texas ocelot. And that's what I do right now, and I'm just embarking on a few other things related to creative projects with art and media. But yeah, so that's my story of how I got to be at this position in time in my life right now.
So many things that you
I know
have done and have seen, and it's just amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Deb. Yeah, it's, these things that you encounter in life, they don't always feel good, but, you do your best. I think you should do your best, and I think I'm in that position now where I'm able to look at my life experiences and give them meaning through this project. When you see the things, that people who catch poachers go through, and, It's like you watch movies like The Conservation Game and these things. When you're right there watching these things unravel, it's not pleasant at all, right? But to give it meaning, like you have done, actually, like Carol has done, it can really turn that into a different direction and give you more hope.
So where are you right now with your foundation, with the Asiatic Cheetah Conservation Project?
Well, I'm writing, first of all, a children's book, Marita the Cheetah. And this is a true story of an Asiatic cheetah cub that was orphaned, and my father rescued her. Sadly, cheetahs and other animals, but are not, are seen as pests by farmers. And I know this to be the case in Africa as well. So the Marita's mother was out basically fetching food, and she had hidden her 3 cubs in a lair. And she went out, and the shepherd actually killed her mother. And then they found the cubs, the 3 cubs, and they did their best to harm them and kill them as well. Fortunately, the ranger knew to call my dad. My dad drove out there, 14-hour drive, if you can believe that. He's just like, and that's what he did. So he drove 14 hours to this rural village and found that one of the cheetah cubs still had life. And there was a very faint heartbeat. So he put her in the car. He drove her back to Tehran. And Marita is a name that harkens to beloved and love. I think it's a Scandinavian name, but it's also, I think, also exists in different languages. And my father loved this name. And in the car, he gave her this name. And he, wanted her to stay alive, and he had to hold her close to his heart, actually, to keep her warm. And he wanted to give her a sense of another being, right? So it's very touching to me that, he did that, and she eventually was raised in the zoo. She survived being an endangered species. It's up to the government to handle the cases like that, and she was the only case like that. But so they placed her in a zoo, and she was raised there, and she eventually became the reason for National Cheetah Day being August 31st. So I'm writing a children's book about her, and that's the first project. I'm also just writing about wildlife conservation, and specifically Asiatic cheetah conservation, because quite complex, especially being that it's in Iran. They only exist there at this time. I'm writing a book about that is for adults, not for children. And that gets into the different complexities of it, how it came to be where it's at now, where we've gone from 100 individual cheetahs in 95, according to my father's work, down to less than 35. 12 of which are regularly monitored, is my understanding, and about 2 which are in captivity now in Iran. So I'm working on that book as well. I'm also gathering, kind of like in a pre-production phase is what they call it, for a documentary related to my father's work and also Asiatic cheetahs. And so these are the creative projects that I'm running under my nonprofit, and it's basically to raise awareness and educate people about the Asiatic cheetah. So those are the things I'm up to at this time. My background is in education and communications and journalism, so this is why I'm going about it in this particular way. I hope that answered your question.
And am I right that your children's book will be out later this year? Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So right now we're scheduled for an audiobook in May, and then we'll be doing, I think it's called like pre-release or something like that. I don't still getting to know these terms. That'll be in late summer, fall, the print edition and the ebook.
You be sure you let me know when that comes out, because I am very interested in that.
Oh, I'll let everyone know who's willing to listen. Absolutely. Thank you.
And you are on social media. You want to tell everybody where you're at on social media so they can follow you? Or is it in your...
Yeah.
Is it on your profile?
It is in my profile, but it's Asiatic Cheetah and then _ACCP. So the acronym is ACCP for Asiatic Cheetah Conservation Project. I'd really love it if you could follow me on Instagram, actually. And I'm also on Facebook. And the website is asiaticcheetah.com. You could get on the mailing list, and I'll keep everyone posted on all these things that I'm working on.
So for those of you in the audience, if you don't know, if you'll click on Lobat's picture and then click on View Full Profile, you can actually see all of her information there and find how to follow her on social media if you would like to do that. Karen, I know we've already talked about this, but you have questions. Would you like to go next?
I do have a question. Well, I have two, actually. Welcome. I was wondering before, I know you've been on here before, but I just wanted to make sure that I said your name right. So it's Lobat, right? That's how I say it?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, good. Okay, so being kind of in outreach with Big Cat Rescue, I wondered, how do you get your mission out to people? How, because you're involved in another country, but you're also here. So what is your main, networking?
That's a great question, and it's something that I've had to basically create. So being in the United States, being an American, and having Asiatic cheetahs, as far as we know, only existent in Iran, and given the political situation and the travel bans to Iran, I cannot go back and forth. So what do I do? And, this was actually really depressing for me for a very long time, because I felt like I couldn't continue my father's mission. Political things have gotten worse and worse. Travel is impossible for me to go there. And so what do I do? And what can I do? So I had to get creative. And I realized, hey, granted, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. And I think that had always stopped me, the fact that I did not study the hard sciences, as they're called. And so, it bummed me out, for lack of a better word. But I just decided I was going to turn that around and not allow it to debilitate me. And so what I do is what I can do, which is I'm capable of writing. I can function through technology. I can raise awareness internationally and globally, because guess what? The scientists haven't been able to reverse this situation. It's gotten worse. And those are the numbers. Those are the facts. That's not me. So there's social issues, there's cultural issues, there's educational issues behind conservation. And those are the things I can focus on and I'm really good at. And those are the things that I've studied. I'm also interested in the arts. I've always been interested in theater and performance arts. And so I'm bringing it all together under conservation. And so that is my approach. It's just a matter of what can I do.
Yes, I agree. It's hard because, well, the world's always a tough place, but just, with all going on right now, it's hard to get people interested. They're trying to survive themselves, and then you're putting something else on top of that that you want help with. So I just wondered if you found difficulty in that right now, because like I said, people are trying to just survive in their own home, family, work, etc. So that happens here too. It's hard sometimes to get people to be serious about big cats at the moment. Thank you. I appreciate that. I thought the theater, what a great way to reach people if you can come up with something in that venue. So great. One other question. I just wanted to know quickly, how did your father get interested in this mission? Was he always a cat lover?
Well, again, it's just strange. What happens first, the name or life makes you who you are? So Asadi, our last name means from the lions. And my father, from what I know through him and my grandmother, is that, first of all, he was born in Central Asia in a tent. He belonged to a nomadic tribe. They didn't even have, the civilized structures that they later developed. So my father was 6 years old, and his mom and dad decided, okay, it's time to settle down. And so they settled down. They stopped the nomadic lifestyle. And at that point, my father's interest and love for nature was highly developed. And he's, from what I know, always been in tune with nature and with animals, and always seemed to do better in nature and with animals than actually humans. And that's something he would always say. So I think it was something he learned from a very young age, and something that he just enjoyed. I also found a really sweet note that he had written at some point in his life, but I could tell it was when he was very young. It was a part of the things that I had abruptly stuffed into his suitcase. And it was a pledge. He'd made this pledge to himself, and it was kind of like a pledge of allegiance, right? But it was a pledge to the soil, the flora, the fauna, and the animals of his country. And he said that he vowed to protect the soil, the flora, the fauna, the animals. I can't think of exactly the right words. He didn't say flora and fauna, but it was really sweet to see that. So I think it's something that has always been very, very meaningful and important to him. And I think it was a kind of actually healing type of even therapy for him to be working for animals and wildlife conservation and getting away from cities and structures and civilization.
Excellent. I agree that you're kind of born with that, inside. Sometimes you just can't even fight it, but that's what amazing lineage you have, and what a legacy you will leave. If hopefully this, let us know how we can help with it too, but hopefully you'll get even more powerful and snowball effect and make it an amazing, incredible thing. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Deb, you want me to just pass it along to Dawn?
Actually, I'd like to ask something if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. This is Carol. Lobat, back in the 90s, when I first signed on to AOL and discovered there was a world outside of Tampa, Florida, one of the first people that I talked to was a guy, and I wish to heck I could remember this guy's name, but he said that he worked in a missile plant, and he and a bunch of his friends were trying to protect these Iranian cheetahs that were in their area where they were doing all of this missile testing and such. And he was contacting us to see what we could do to help him protect these cats. Do you think in the 90s that your father could have been working with those same people?
Oh, absolutely. That's super interesting, Carol. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. That could have been my dad. He's the first person to have started conservation for Asiatic cheetahs. This would in 95.
Wow.
Very well could have been him, because even though they knew the status was low, nobody had an organized mission, especially with international collaboration. Remember, Iran being at that point had already gone through a revolution, and the government, the people, cloistered and closed off from international collaboration. But my father was not, because that's where he studied, and he studied in the United States, and then he worked in India. So honestly, it could have been him. That's wild.
I remember he always referred to them as the Persian cheetahs. I never heard the word Asiatic cheetahs until probably the last 10, 20 years. But back then, whoever I was talking to was referring to them as Persian cheetahs. And I was dumbfounded because I didn't even know there was such an animal.
Right. Well, I've heard, kind of like colloquial terms, I guess you could say, Iranian cheetah, Persian cheetah. I think, we go back, we hearken to those Latin names, right? It translates into the Asiatic cheetah. And to be, Persian cheetah and all that, I think it maybe kind of makes sense now-ish, because they're only existent in Iran. And the name of the country, Iran, was changed in the 40s from Persia. So that's why we have those two names. But, they did exist. They did go all the way down into India. And so it was the whole range, actually, of Asia, Central Asia and South, even kind of down south into India. So, but that's fascinating, Carol.
It's such a small world. I'll hand it back to Deb and Karen. Thank you for that, Lobat.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing.
Oh, sorry. I was talking with my mic muted. Sorry about that. All right. So if everyone will pull their screen down, and that's called pull to refresh, we'll put everybody in the same order so we all see the same thing. And Dawn, you are the first person I see next to Lobat. So I'm going to let you start, and then I'll let you hand it off to Key, and then Key can hand it off. We'll just go down the row.
Okay. Hi, Deb. Hi, Carol. Hi, Lobat. Hi, Karen. My question is, I don't know if you answered this, Lobat, was how many cheetahs are in, did you say, here now?
Yeah, so the Asiatic cheetah, it's just to have a number when animals are so low and so critically endangered is really difficult, right? Because that's just it. The problem is they're endangered and they're in critical crisis. We do know a few things, though, based on some sightings and based on monitoring, that there's 12 we know that are regularly monitored, 12 adults. We know of at least 3 cubs in the wild, and we know of 2 that are in captivity right now. Again, this is all in Iran. Making this extra complicated is the fact that they are in Iran, and Iran is not open to communication, particularly with the United States. Iran is a very closed country. It's closed off from sanctions as well. So, and when you dealing with a nation like that, the information is going to be kind of curious. But I do know from people on the ground, some of the folks I know, and there's very few that are still working with Asiatic cheetahs, that it's definitely below 35. I know what I said was much, much lower than that, but that's just sort of the information that I'm getting, that I know specifically about those specific individual cheetahs that I mentioned. The 12 monitored, 3 cubs, and 2 in captivity. But in general, I'm told that there are less than 35 in all of Iran at this time.
Wow. Well, again, I really like what you're doing, and I am going to definitely follow you. And this is very interesting. Thank you so much, Lobat.
Well, thank you so much. And I think, what is kind of coming up here that I'm hearing people say is what are you doing and how many are there? And I think what message I want to get across is that, the animals don't belong to any one nation. The animals are global, and we all have a right, and we should all know what's happening with animals that we care about. And of course, this room being dedicated to big cats and all of us being big cat lovers, I think they're, just as much yours as they are mine, as they are the nation of Iran. They don't have control and they don't understand politics. Borders are arbitrary, especially when it comes to things like this. So, it's just having this animal subject to being under the same pressures and economic sanctions. And believe me, that affects the cheetahs too, because if people are hunting their prey, there's much less for them to hunt. The endangered animals are subject to the same things that the humans are subject to. And it's just very, very sad that this is what the world has come to. But I really appreciate your interest and your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Key, it's yours.
Hi, everybody. Lobat, I'm very interested in the cheetah. I always have been. The Asiatic cheetah, of course, is a beautiful cat. Now, if you can't keep track of the people that keep them as pets, could there be more than what you know?
There could be. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. So, in Iran, I mean, it's possible, definitely. It's possible that somebody might have them in that way as a pet. Cheetahs are one of the big cats that, I guess, they're just more vulnerable, and they don't have the same jaw structure, and so on. They have typically, would say, like in the 1900s, they were called hunting leopards. If we were to translate it, they were called the hunting leopard. And that is because they would take them out with the dogs to go hunting, to go get the prey. So they can be trained, and this is one of the reasons that their numbers have declined, because they've been abused in that sense, captured and abused, and utilized in those ways by hunters. They would also sell them, actually, to go back to England. So we have like 1920s, like Roaring 20 pictures, with people, people with money, lots of money, walking a cheetah. They also used to race them with greyhounds in England, if you can imagine that. There's some video of that I've got. So these are all bits that'll go into my documentary, but it's possible, yeah, I suppose it is. The other side of that is cheetahs coming from Africa into the Middle East. Not so much Iran, but there is a whole other problem of the African variety species being brought into the Middle East illegally and sold as pets. So that kind of will lead me down another spiral of how people can help with that. But there's that side of it. But again, those would be African cheetahs in Central Asia or the Middle East. It wouldn't be the Asiatic. Interestingly, they are 97% genetically similar. So that's the other crazy thing about cheetahs.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you do for cheetahs, that you're expanding so much knowledge out there, because we all need the knowledge to help these animals persevere and not be diminished in any capacity. So anything that anybody can do to give more knowledge out there, I'm all for. And I definitely will be following you, and whatever kind of knowledge you can spread, I'll help you spread it. And thank you so much for being on here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Kay. I really appreciate your support. That's all really wonderful to hear. Thank you so much. It means a lot. I started to talk about the cheetah trafficking, and since everyone's here in the room and I know everybody cares, it's something that's popping up on social media. You've probably seen it. You've seen people maybe cuddling cheetahs, and maybe you've seen images of somebody with a expensive looking sports car and they've got a cheetah in it, or someone that looks like they might be in the Middle East walking a cheetah. They're not always just in the Middle East, but we do have to be careful about these types of social media posts, because just that clicking on like on a post like that might really genuinely encourage others to give, put money into that trade, and encourages that whole industry of illegal trafficking. And these are very, very vulnerable animals. They're declining in Africa as well, less than 7,000. And it's just really, they're very difficult breeders. They really don't like breeding. They're so genetically similar that their genetic pool is very, very low, and very few cubs make it to adulthood. So to see them being treated in this way and kept as pets, they get hip problems because they can't run. Vets can't always help. There's just a ton of problems with having an animal like that as a pet. And they do worse breeding when in captivity. So we can all participate in this stopping, hopefully, and ceasing the pet trade in a way by, again, not liking when you see posts like that, but also if you ever see things that look like they're advertising for sales, and most of these animals are being sold on Facebook and Instagram, and it could be in different languages. But if you see anything like that, if you could just take a screenshot, you can email it to me. I'm now kind of indirectly but directly working with the Alliance Against Wildlife Trafficking. There's a wonderful person who's tracking this, Patricia Chikorache, and I send this information over to her. So if you ever see anything on social media about sales of cheetahs, even other big cats, I recommend actually keeping track of that, taking screenshots of that, and we'll find a place to deal with other big cats as well. But specifically for the cheetahs, please do send them over to me. You can see it, I think, on my profile how to send that over. But I'd really appreciate everyone's help with putting a stop to that pet trade as much as we can by not supporting it and reporting it.
Well, thank you very much for that information, because I definitely do already dislike those posts. I mean, I don't even like when I see zoos parading the cheetahs around with leashes. It's totally horrible. So again, thank you very much, and I'm going to pass it off to Daniel.
Well, hi, Lobat. Thank you for all you do for the cheetahs. If anybody wants to follow cheetahs and do it responsibly, the Wildcat Sanctuary, which you probably know, they have Cheetah and Lavani. They're former zoo cats. I think they were part of the species survival program. And so that's a post about cheetahs you can like. It's not going to do any harm. But Lobat, I'll ask. I was not familiar with the Persian cheetahs before. I only know the African cheetahs. Are they different in stature or size? Like, what's the difference between the Asian cheetah and the Persian cheetah?
Yeah, great question. And the fact that you didn't know and so many people didn't know is the other reason I started doing this, because it would just be even sadder to me if they do become extinct and people like you who are cat lovers, big cat lovers, don't even know that this animal existed. So that's the other mission I'm on, is genuinely just to share awareness and document as much as I can about this animal before it's too late. And I think every living being on this planet deserves to be known in that sense. So that is a mission I'm on. And thank you for bringing up the fact that there are sanctuaries that are responsible. Again, though, just being very cautious. I mean, even though they're sanctuaries, and they don't always do this. A lot don't do this. But those cuddly images, right, with big cats is what is, I think, also damaging. But yeah, it could lead to that pet industry. So I think I went on a rant and I forgot what your actual question was, so I apologize.
Oh, okay. To be clear real quick, Wildcat Sanctuary is accredited, just like Big Cat, they have the same accreditation. My question was, what is the difference between the Asiatic cheetah and the African cheetah? Are they different size, stature, markings? Is there a noticeable difference?
Oh yeah, thank you, and thank you for clarifying the other. But yes, they are smaller, and they have more fur, especially kind of around the neck, and even like on the nape area. So if you look at my website, all of those are Asiatic cheetahs, and they're just smaller within their leg structure. They're a little bit lighter, and the reason being is that they've had to acclimate to different surrounding environments. So the Asiatic cheetah is really in a space where they honestly shouldn't be, in the mountainous regions. So they're climbing, and you look at those legs, and they're built for running, right? They're built for the desert. And because of habitat loss, they've kind of gone more and more into the mountainous areas. But they've adapted to a certain extent, which is fascinating in that their legs have gotten shorter and they're puffier. They have more fur. Otherwise, genetically, as far as we know, they're the same, 97% similar. And they look very much alike, the same wonderful sounds, the chirping, purring, and meowing sounds, actually. And behaviors are the same.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Randall, you're next.
Hello, Lobat. I really do appreciate all that you do, and it's amazing that with 35 we can still, or actually less, that we have some diversity available for them to be able to survive. But one of the things I did wonder about is how is the prey, and I guess to that extent also any of the predators that might affect these cats in the areas that they are at?
That's a great question. So the prey has definitely gotten less and less. So deer, rabbits being their typical prey, there's fewer and fewer deer and rabbits for them to hunt. The economic sanctions on Iran have been such that the price of food has gone up so much. There's sort of like monopolies on food, they can't do trade with other nations, and so people are really struggling economically. And so whenever that is happening, people are prone to hunt more and to become, more concerned with keeping what's theirs and looking at such an amazing species as the cheetah as a pest, right? And so there's not much prey for them, and there's not much space for them anymore. And that's why they're basically getting closer and closer to human beings, villages. So it's definitely a problem for them. And that's, one of the reasons, like I mentioned, Marita's mom, the orphan cheetah cub, her mother was, approaching a shepherd and an area where he had his flock because she needed to eat, right? So they are getting much closer to humans than they should be and that they typically would like to do, I think. And really, probably their biggest predator, humans and cars. Every year we lose several cheetahs in Iran to car accidents. And so the fastest animal on earth can't outrun a car. And it's really sad that that's happening. And so it's just devastating, actually, when, I see images of that. So the land management, the roads are not built well. And the warnings that experts have given, the advice that experts have put out there, who I've been talking to, and I know for a fact, that they've gone to Iran, and I know for a fact that there's been agreements to do these things, and it hasn't happened. One of them is wildlife crossings. So wildlife can cross from one space to another. A cheetah has like a 2,000-mile range, right? So it's going to need space. And they also roam to mate because, again, they're not prone to mating with others who are too similar to them. And being so low in the gene pool, they go further and further to find one another and to find food. So it faces all these problems, and human beings and vehicles are their biggest predator, which is a strange thing to think about. So that's in Iran. Now, generally, lions and leopards are also predators to the cheetah. There are no more Asiatic lions or the Caspian tiger any longer in Iran. Those were species that existed, lions and tigers. We still have Persian leopards, and they do predate on cheetahs. So it's definitely very, very vulnerable to other big cats as well, to being the prey of other big cats as well.
So So by any chance, is there ways to see about like farming a type of rabbit that you could be able to help them sustain that prey?
Well, I mean, I don't know anything about that, if that's been attempted, but I mean, I'm sure that it wouldn't be difficult to do. But I think the bigger problem is, even if that's done and you release a bunch more rabbits and, the villagers go off and kill them more and the cheetah's still getting hit by the vehicles, I mean, we still have this problem of land management, right? And we still have the problem of the economic problems that people face. So, and how do you just make sure that the cheetahs get them, right? So that's where we have a few cheetahs right now that are in captivity, 2 of them that I know of that are in captivity, but they won't breed in captivity. So they don't like audiences. And and that's not just me saying that, but they really don't do well breeding in captivity. But yeah, it's a bigger, wider problem.
Oh, I'm quite sure, but yeah, I thought well, it would be helpful for at least some relief on one of those edges. I do appreciate so much, though. And let me go ahead and pass it on to Marcy then.
Well, you're making a lot of sense, and if there were programs that would support biodiversity, support humans and farming, and a whole circular structure. And there are systems that are in place now, like with IUCN, I do some sustainability consulting, and having just kind of, been through that cycle, there are ways that you would put together basically a team of experts to study the whole thing. So how can we support the local villages and economy? How can we make sure that more and more rabbits, let's say, more and more deer, rabbits can exist within this environment, and that we are not getting in the way of other animals such as the cheetah, and that we have this whole circular system where we're actually in balance ecologically. We're not living in balance ecologically, I think, in most spaces, but certainly not there, certainly not with this issue. So it's sort of like we would need to get together, and this is what I do with IUCN when I'm able to, is you get together a team of experts to study the land management, the biodiversity, the financial situation of the community, speak to the community elders, and in some respects get the buy-in from the government to create new systems. And it could be different types of farming, it could be different sources of income from, let's say, breeding rabbits and then selling them. So there's different things that could be done, but we have to be able to go there, and people have to be amenable to it. And there should be a structure of a team that analyzes this, and studies all the different aspects of being sustainable for humans and animals and the environment. So I do believe there's ways to do that, but I don't see it happening very often in the world. There's a few projects that I know of that have started to tackle these issues, like in Costa Rica, I know. There's some systems that are being put into place where a team comes in and studies the situation and does things to improve it. But again, as a team and with the buy-in of the government and the community. But so this is called nature-based solutions, a type of sustainability management and consulting that I'm speaking of and that I'm versed in. But you're making sense, and what you're saying is not illogical at all. It's just we need a team, and we need to look at all these different things and to do it together. So, and we need governmental buy-in. But what you're saying is hearkening is reminding me of these factors of we are not coexisting with animals and with nature. We're not doing that well on this planet.
I appreciate it, all you're doing. It's such a diverse thing that you have to see about doing all those pieces together. And it sometimes can be, again, the human related that is the hardest to deal with. But yeah, I guess pieces at a time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I would just also say thank you, of course, for your inspiring and incredible work, and acknowledge your father's incredible work. And I've already gone on to Instagram and Facebook and followed you, and that says a lot for me because I don't use Instagram or Facebook for anything really but Big Cat Rescue and just a couple of other things. But already going on and seeing the videos of the cheetahs and the camera trap photos, Carol is just so right that we need to essentially eliminate zoos and let people see the animals in nature as it is intended. And the camera trap photos, the videos are so much better. So I'm very excited to follow you and your work and learn more about what you're about and just see more of those photos of the animals in the wild. And I 100% believe there is something in a name, or in my case, I was born the year of the tiger and under the sign of Cancer, and I am 100% a tiger Cancer girl. So I believe there is something in destiny, or whatever you want to call it, that you were meant to do this work, and it's just so incredible and important.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to have won you and your beautiful cat over on your profile image here. That's so sweet of you to say those things. Yeah, it's fascinating to think about, all these components. When we talk about loving animals, loving big cats, well, there's all these components to it, right? And there's definitely a spiritual side just as much as there is a scientific, elements to keeping them alive. There's also social parts of it, right? So, and cultural parts of it. So there's so many aspects of it. But thanks for making me feel like I'm not crazy.
Well, if you are, then I am as well. But ever since I was a little girl, I have been passionate about tigers and big cats and little cats. So my Aslan is the one in the photo, and he's demanding attention right now. But anyways, I just wanted to say thank you, and I will pass it along to Barbara.
Oh, hi. Thanks. Yeah, well, first, Lobat, yeah, what you're doing is really awesome, and I can't even imagine sitting down to go, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this, and that. So it's very daunting, and you're so far from your, where you should be. You should be over there in by where the cheetahs are, I know, helping them out, but I understand why you're not. But yeah, Daniel kind of asked my question because I was kind of wondering too what the physical differences were between the two of them. Because when I see the picture that's up at the top of this page, I'm going, yeah, they look a little different. So I was kind of wondering, what that was. So that got answered. But I was also thinking is when you were talking about Facebook, and we see all these images because I'm seeing a lot on TikTok. There's somebody with a serval or something, and they're all like, oh, look how lovey-dovey, and I really want to ask them how old that cat is. But you always have to be careful how much you interact with them, because like Brittany says, interact in the comments, and so Facebook knows something's going on. So if we keep doing that, if you keep going on and arguing with people about it, then Facebook goes, oh, people want to see that, and they'll keep pushing it out, So yeah, like they say, take a picture of the ad if it's an ad and send it. But it's always kind of a touchy situation. But never share it, because if you start sharing that stuff to people to say, hey, look what I found, that kind of can ruin it too, because it gives the algorithm more boost to it. And a lot of times I just go up to the 3 dots in the right and either report the post or hide the post or whatever, because if you do that enough, if enough people report the post or hide it, then Facebook says something's wrong here, and they also take a look at it too. So that is also one way to kind of, a little bit. But no, really appreciate what you're doing, and it's so wonderful to hear somebody going after and helping the cheetahs, because I always love the cheetahs, and it's just sad the situation they're in, because I don't even know how they ever got to be so, their gene pool is so limited, and I'm like, That's all I've ever heard about cheetahs from way back. They always kept talking about how there's just no gene pool left in them, and I'm like, how did that happen? Like, but somebody only put 3 on the world, and that's all that ever bred? I don't know, but I thank you for it so much, and good luck. And Lee.
Well, thank you for bringing that stuff up regarding, the Facebook and how it's the algorithms and all of that. One of the things is that, Facebook doesn't see sales of animals or illegal parts of animals as problematic. They don't do any of that vetting, right? So that's one of the things that the Alliance, I don't think Mandy's here, but she does some work with them as well, but with the Alliance Against Wildlife Trafficking is working on to have some kind of policies with social media, policies and laws. Right now there are none, so that's that they don't see it as problematic. That's the problem. But as far as the gene pool and cheetahs, there's so many fascinating things to learn about cheetahs, and this is the other reason we should be concerned about the Asiatic cheetah's decline is how did that happen? Like you just brought it up. How is it that we have cheetahs in Iran and Central Asia? How did that happen? It's not connected to Africa. What is happening, right? So these are the things that we could study animal migrations and different aspects of genetics if we could get a hold of them, if we didn't have sanctions on Iran. One of the ways that we know that is because my father had to smuggle out a piece of a femur from a cheetah out of Iran and give it, again, through smuggling. I mean, it's illegal. He couldn't get that out, and the Iranian government didn't want to study those things, right? They banned it. So it's like, how do we know that? Well, I mean, scientists have to do things like that to figure things out, because they're dealing with these laws that don't support really conservation of animals, especially when we look at instances of trade sanctions. We look at, the Endangered Species Act and these things and their CITES laws. Well, a lot of these, don't support these types of bigger studies and understanding these things. As far as we know, there's ideas and concepts that indicate there's people that believe we had cheetahs in North America, like these huge super cheetahs. Apparently they're much bigger. There were cheetahs in Europe. So what happened during the mass extinction that those cheetahs were not able to continue living and are now extinct, but we have cheetahs remaining in Africa and in Central Asia, being Iran. So there's so many things we don't know about our own life on planet Earth because of policies, because of human intervention, and because we honestly just don't respect and work with nature and animals. There's so much we could learn from animals. But yeah, so thanks for asking those questions. There's a lot more I could, discuss about that. And actually, if you go to my website, I've got some articles up that you might find interesting. So AsiaticCheetah.com, and then publications articles. So I have some interesting articles there that you might be interested in reading about. It talks a little bit about these genetics and what we know about cheetahs.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I just wanted to thank you all, Carol, Deb, and Karen, and also Lobat. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. And your work is just a blessing. Just so much of a blessing. And know that you guys are doing this for the animals, and you guys love them so much, and it does show. And I just have a few questions for you, Lobat. How many organizations do you work with as far as like the animals?
Well, I'm mostly focused on this project, the Asiatic Cheetah Conservation Project. There's also the nonprofit that I've formed with 2 other co-founders, and that's still under development, but it is a registered nonprofit, and we'll be working more with collaborating, and that is Big Cat Conservation Middle East. So I call that Big Cat Me
me, big cat me. And so that will be more a broader area. One of the co-founders has experience with Persian leopard conservation, and I think he'd like to do some collaborating with other organizations in the region and global organizations to expand that type of conservation. But so really it's myself working on this. I collaborate as much as possible, but I need to do that more. And then there's the IUCN in terms of the sustainability stuff that I was discussing. But I do collaborate, depending, who needs what. They'll come to me maybe specifically for Asiatic cheetah information. That's why I call myself a cheetah ambassador. So there's a couple films actually that are doing educational aspects, like wraparounds. So one of them is called Cheetah, and that's by Bedlam. And then there's a PBS documentary by Dennis Bellevue called In the Footsteps of Marco Polo, and that's all about Central Asia. So I've helped with education that goes into those things in relationship to Asiatic cheetah conservation, and just like cultural advising and things like that. But so I do consulting work, and I'm always open to collaborating with other nonprofits. Basically, my heart is with big cats, where the big cats are. So I do as much as I can, and then it's I try to rein it into some respects to work on my project as well.
Thank you so very much, and I do apologize if that was a read question, but and also about your book, what ages does it range? Because I have two nephews that are 2 and 1, and I was wondering, would that be a book that they would enjoy?
I mean, I think it's actually a book that all ages would enjoy, but of course that's because it's me, right? But I think it's considered young readers. Yeah, I'm being told by the publisher that it's young readers. And so I think the other part of the book is that the illustrations are just so beautiful. And right now I just started with working with an animator. I'm taking some of the illustrations and making a short animation. So you'll be able to see what they look like, and I'll be sharing that with folks. So please follow me or get on my mailing list. But it's young readers, and I think the animation will give you a better idea about it. But I think they'd love it. I think they'd enjoy it. I think you'd enjoy it, because I there's big cats involved and beautiful images. So, and it's also, just a father-daughter story. A bit of it is also just like, it's about a little girl, and that was me, whose father saves this cheetah. And, he wasn't always like a regular father. I had to chase him around to be my father. I had to find my dad in order to find my father. And I think he changed when he had to raise Marita, because it was the first time that he put himself, I think, in this nurturing role. So, he was fighting the bad guys, right? He was catching poachers, and then he was tracking cheetahs and talking to policymakers and figuring out international collaborations with UN and things like that with Iran, and trying to get them to work together, right? So when he saved her, it was a different side of him that came out, and he became a better father. And that improved our relationship, and things shifted when he started to nurture an animal. So there's also that story, and I think that speaks to just like a universal theme of parents and children.
Well, I most definitely can't wait to read your book, because when I first heard you talking about him, I most definitely would like to buy that book, most definitely.
You're so sweet.
Well, Lobat, thank you so very much for coming on to speak with us tonight, and of course, the other speakers. Thank you, Carol, Deb, and Karen. Thank you so much for letting me speak this evening, and I'm sorry I'm taking up so much time, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I most definitely love the work that you guys are doing, and and I most definitely pray for you guys daily in your cause.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
My question was, and you and Randall kind of talked about it a little bit, but what do you think from your point of view needs to happen to protect their natural habitat other than protecting against poachers? And also, I want to tell you, you're amazing.
Well, you're amazing. Thank you. Definitely wildlife crossings. We need to stop overpopulating the planet, for one thing, and the sanctions are definitely not helping. But better land management, so roads aren't going through their pathways, their ranges, and then we need crossings so they can pass through or on top, actually, over areas. So overpasses, let's say, where they don't have to cross roads. There's development for those that, architectural kind of developments that have been done at Banff National Park, for example. So definitely they need a way to be able to cross and not be hit by vehicles and have safe passage.
Thank you very much.
Kate, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry I keep having to leave because I'm working and I keep getting calls. But so I apologize if this was already covered. I just wondered what has been the reaction from the general population in Iran? Are you seeing a lot of support from the people there, or are a lot of people, do they still need to be convinced and just don't care about the plight of the Asiatic leopard? Cheetah, sorry.
No, you're fine. Well, I think people are supportive and people want to do better, but it's sort of like not in their hands. These are the roads that people have to drive on. They're trying to survive. COVID hasn't helped. Iran has been sanctioned to the point where they're not even able to buy, if you can imagine this, under a global pandemic, they're not able to buy vaccinations. So, Iran is in a humanitarian crisis right now. We're not able to get any funding over there. They're not able to get vaccinations. So it's really sort of like each person has to survive. But, they do care about the wildlife. People are interested in the environment. Definitely my dad's work at the university was expanded that. And a lot of organizations popped up since 95. He was the only person who taught wildlife conservation in Iran at the university. Nobody else had gone abroad to study it, and he did. He came to the United States to study it. So they're interested, but they're so... they are endangered themselves. Iranian people in Iran are endangered, I would say right now, from the global sanctions and also from within. So it's very, very hard situation to be able to, I think, expand what they can conceive of doing for endangered species.
Yes, that's very sad. And I always find cultural information to be so interesting, but I sure hope and pray things improve over there for the people as well as the cheetahs. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. It's just amazing when someone is willing to devote their lives to saving big cats. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're very kind. Thank you.
Prez, did you have a question or a comment for Lobat?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
I do. I have several. One is, well, first of all, Lobat, thank you very much for your encouragement during International Cheetah Day on December 4th. You're actually a member of my Facebook group, the Winnipeg Cheetah Coalition. One of the questions where I'm focusing my attention is, where is the cheetah trafficking happening? And is trafficking of Iranian cheetahs an issue?
Hi, Prez. That's awesome. You do a great job with that group on Facebook. Thank you so much for that information that you spread about cheetahs. I love it. So the cheetah trafficking is going between Africa and mostly the Gulf countries. So Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain would be a Gulf country, but in that, Kuwait, that area is where it's happening. So I don't believe Iran is really a part of that. That doesn't mean they have not been a part of that. That doesn't mean it's impossible, because I know, for example, the falcons in Iran are trafficked outside to the Arab countries because they do falconry, right? But a lot of them are caught in Iran, or maybe even kind of bred in Iran and then sold. So it's an industry. I mean, people, unfortunately, the world over have found ways to make money off of animals. And when they're endangered, guess what? The prices go up because it's more rare. So it's less of a problem from Iran because there just aren't enough. But I would certainly not say it's never happened or it could not be happening. But that doesn't seem to be. The trafficking issue is no longer. It might have been at one time because they were selling cheetahs to India. They were selling cheetahs to the Gulf countries at one point and to England, like I say. That was also illegal. But it's not so much the problem now because there's so few remaining.
Okay.
Mostly the problem from Africa.
Okay. If I may ask a follow-up, you mentioned the first cheetah, Marita, was in a conflict with a shepherd. Are we still seeing conflicts between human activity, like agriculture and cheetahs? Because there's only 35 left. You think they're
right? No, but that does exist.
Okay.
Yeah, it still is a problem, just like it is for the leopards as well. In Iran, remaining in Iran. So we've got like maybe 500 Persian leopards, and we've got less than 35 cheetahs, and definitely it's still an issue in the rural areas. Just like it is in Africa, like it is in India, for example, when you have they're just the proximity, right? They're too close, and so the animal is an animal and is looking for food, and humans are scared, and the conflict still occurs, sadly.
Okay. I hope to stay in touch with you. Basically, you seem to have more of the data, and I'm trying to bring in more data analytics to anyone who needs it. So I hope to be in touch with you in the future.
That sounds great. Thank you, Press.
Well, thank you all so much for joining this evening. I think this has been so informative, and Lobat, you just have had so much wonderful information to share. So before we talk about next week, if everybody will open their mic and tell Lobat how much we appreciate her.
Love you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Lobat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, did you have anything else before I close the room?
Were you going to invite everybody to Twitter Spaces next time around, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if you had anything else besides that.
Nope.
Okay, so everybody in here knows Carol likes to try new things, right? And so next week, we are not meeting here in Clubhouse. We are going to meet in Twitter Spaces. So if you've not ever been in a Twitter space, and I had never been in a Twitter space until this week, it is very easy. So let me give you a little bit of direction here. Next week, Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Carol will be in Twitter Spaces as herself. So it's carolbaskin.eth. And I will be in as Big Cat Rescue. So if you not set up a Twitter account, set up a Twitter account. So you'll log on to Twitter, you will create a handle, and then you can follow Big Cat Rescue, and you'll see the orange logo, and you'll see Carol in the logo that she has now here tonight, and you can follow those. So whenever either one of us joins the Twitter space, it will alert you to that. So you will join the Twitter space. It's set up very similar to the way this is set up, the way it looks, the way it behaves as far as, requesting to be on the stage and unmiking and all of that. And so the topic next week is going to be that Carol is going to be an Ask Me Anything About the Cats. So you can come with all your cat questions next week at 6:00 on Twitter Spaces, and we will have an hour there.
My head is hurting.
Don, if you want to get with me, I can help you if you need help, and anybody else in here too. If you want to get with me on Instagram or Facebook, I'll be more than happy to kind of walk you through the process. But it is very simple.
Deb,
so when you get on,
I am contacting you. Yes.
Okay. When you get on Twitter Spaces, at the top of the Twitter, when you click on Twitter, at the top there will be a blue bar, and those are the Twitter Spaces. You simply click on that, and it will take you right into the room.
Sure.
I think we can also set up the room.
Account. You can't just.
Right. You do have a Twitter account, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we can set up the room, get a link, and then pin it to the top of Big Cat Rescue and my profile that day, so it'll make it easier for people to find it.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with it to know how to do that, Carol. So you'll have to help me with that.
Well, I've never done it. I've only seen it done, but we'll figure it out. And the reason we want to do that is because we have so many Twitter followers over there that we just don't have that big of a following here on Clubhouse. And so if we can do some of these going back and forth, maybe we can build up both areas.
So plan to join us next week at 6:00 in Twitter Spaces for an Ask Me Anything with Carol about the cats. So thank you guys for joining tonight. Thank you, Lobat, for being here. And thanks everyone else for being here this evening. And you guys have a great week. Stay safe. And we will see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
everyone.
Yep. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Carol.
Good night.
Bye.